All right, everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be doing a slate preview of tonight's zillion game slate. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be around a little bit later for the live stream, nor am I going to be updating projections after this early look. So with that said, this is a very early look of the slate tonight. And what I am going to do is kind of look at it from a top-down perspective instead of a game-by-game perspective. I tried to do the game-by-game the other day, and I just really struggle. So what I'm going to be doing is, again, I'm trying to take the whole slate and break it down, and we'll see how that goes. So starting with the pitching, I am going to be referring to projections and models throughout this this video. And for those of you who don't know, I'm referring to the kind of the premium projections that we have for True DFS premium members, which involve, you know, just a combination of aggregation from the industry, overweighting models which have been proven to be more accurate than others, plus some, you know, some personal tweaks and things like that. And I really do feel as though these are the best, you know, this is the best I'm going to be able to come up with as far as projections go. And again, to keep in mind that if there's one sport where projections are less relevant, it would be baseball, just because of the way results distribute, but you do have to start with some type of base. So that's where I'm starting, and I'm going to start with the pitching position. And there's as far as I'm looking, there's two complete standouts. And that's one thing you can do if you want to make a 15-game slate or whatever, really, really small. You can identify two complete standouts at pitching. And those are going to be Ohtani and Morton. And keep in mind that you have a lot of good pitching options today. Well, you have a lot of pitching options. Freddie Peralta is 10-2. You have Flaherty at 9-1, Lance Lynn at 10K. Then there's also some very, very interesting cheapos, which I can talk about actually. Those being Jesus Luzardo, actually, from Miami, coming off of a pretty bad game. Marcos Gonzalez looks like he's pretty good. Even Skubal looks like he might be in play. Andrew Heaney might be in play. But according to the numbers that I have right now, the two I mentioned, Ohtani and Morton, really do stand out. So what I'm probably going to end up doing, if this holds, is just gamble on those two pitchers and then kind of spread out the hitting. And that is obviously really dangerous because there's, I mean, seriously, a zillion pitchers who can break this slate. And the guys I mentioned, Peralta, Flaherty, Lynn, I mean, all those guys can put up 35 fantasy points. They really can. And Luzardo 6,100 is really cheap. I mentioned Gonzalez. I mentioned Skubal. I mentioned Heaney. So there's a lot of options on here. Heaney is in this first game against the Red Sox. So let me take a look now at the stacks. And again, I'm looking at my numbers over here on the other screen. And unfortunately, I just can't show you all those, but I can certainly summarize what they are. I do have a pretty spread out pool of teams with respect to stacks. So I rank them in several ways. One is by value, and the other is just by raw points. And what I'd like to do is identify those types of teams that kind of fit both. So I will say this, that the top four, let's go through the top four teams from value. The first one I have is Houston, okay? And I don't have them rated number one by that much. It's actually almost a theoretical tie. And this is against Brady Singer. So the Houston guys that I have as kind of value plays are McCormick, Brantley, Alvarez, if he plays, Diaz at third base, and Jake Myers as well, but he's a fourth outfielder, so you can't play everybody over there. So I do have Houston ranked pretty well over there. And what's interesting is that also in raw points, I have them at ranked 5th or 6th. So Houston, I would consider certainly in play. And if you were going to add kind of like a raw points type approach, you'd probably want to play Altuve. And as you see, if you play Morton and Ohtani, you could play these 5-man stacks and still have plenty of room for decent other, for decent fill-ins, whether it be 3-man stacks or one-offs. Next kind of team that I rate by value and very similar to Houston, that would be the Yankees, actually. Going back to this first game. And before I list the players, let me just look at them as far as raw points go. And raw points, I have them again just above Houston in 5th. So we got to look at that. And then what I'm looking at is what players kind of fit both value and raw points. And those are going to be Judge and Gallo. Those would be my 2 favorites. So Judge and then Gallo. And then depending on how much you want to spend, I mean, if you want to go for pure value, you can go for Gardner at 2,900 over here. You could go for Odor at 3,100. The other one you should probably throw in, though, is Luke Voigt. I mean, Luke Voigt is both a good value and a good raw points guy. So what I would do if I were going to stack the Yankees, I would start with these 3, Judge, Gallo, and Voigt, and then decide whether you want to pay up and play guys like Stanton or Dylan Mayhew, or if you want to save money and then play guys like Odor and Gardner. I have a feeling that you're going to be able to do whatever you want on this slate. So I think that you can, I mean, especially if you play Morton and Ohtani. Look, I did the same thing. I put the 5 best Yankees in there and still have plenty of room. Next team that shows up, it's good value. That's going to be Tampa Bay, going against Spencer Watkins. That's not Spencer Watkins. I forgot his first name, but going against Watkins, and they ranked, basically tied for 3rd and 4th as far as value, and raw points they actually rate number 1, which is surprising to me. So you could probably just go ahead and I'm just guessing, just pay up for whoever you want. So let's say you wanted to play the top guys. So what you would do is you play Brandon Lau, you play Nelson Cruz, you play Randy Arozarena, you'd play Austin Meadows, and you play either you probably play Wander Franco, right? What position is Franco? Franco's shortstop. Now this is difficult. Like this, you can't do unless you have 3 real cheapos, which you probably can find. So then what you have to do is then you go to the value list and replace, say, one of them with somebody like Kiermaier. So Kiermaier's 2,400. So if you like replace Meadows, for example, with Kiermaier, then you could probably get to these other guys. So Tampa, very, very strong play, both from a raw points and the value perspective. Let's keep moving down the list here. Not even down the list, kind of across the list. And the fourth team that rates well value-wise is probably a team that you're not going to need. They're probably just too cheap and probably won't rate as well from a raw points perspective, and that would be Seattle. Let me just take a look. Yeah, so they don't really rate too well as far as raw points go. But if for whatever reason you did want to pay up for pitching and and play Peralta and those other guys, then the Seattle team does rate to be a really good value. So that would be guys like Kalenic, wherever he is. Hold on. Jared Kalenic, 2,600. France, even paying up for Haniger, Seager. What do we say? France. So you could actually pay up here They don't rate quite as high as these others as far as raw points go, so I don't know how smart that is. But these guys do rate as good values, so if you do pay up for pitching, I do like Seattle as an option. And those are the four main value stacks. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'll go back to the raw stacks and just see just who's supposed to just score some points. You know, we already talked about Tampa, Yankees, and Houston, who fit both the raw points approach and the value approach. But there are two teams within the raw points that aren't quite as great values, but let's throw them out there anyway. And that would be Boston. And well, we'll get to the next one in a second. Let's look at Boston first. So Boston is against Heaney, and Heaney, for anybody that's been following him has certainly, you know, quite a bit of volatility to him. So if Heaney is in serving up home run mode and walking people mode or whatever, the Red Sox could be really, really strong. So let me just identify those players. So you have JD Martinez, Bogarts, Devers. Did I say Kiki Hernandez yet? No. Can you get Stallman at second base? Yes. So him at second base, and then Hunter Renfroe. So again, it's difficult, but you know there are cheapos which we're going to get to that you can make this Red Sox stat work. And the other team which is showing up as far as decent raw points play is actually Philly. Let's take a look at them in the DraftKings app here. So Philly's against Castellanos. He was originally, I think it was supposed to be against Bumgarner, Philadelphia, but they look pretty good. They are showing a great degree of ownership, though, for some reason. I was not expecting that. So I don't know if I'm going to do that. But just to identify those players, you have Harper. Again, he's 6K. Makes it tough. McCutchen, 3,800. You have JT Realmuto, who always has, you know, upside. Then you have Segura. I really like Segura, by the way. I mean, he swings the bat really hard. And then Didi. And certainly you could play all these guys as well if you want. So if you use these pitchers, for example, like Morton and Ohtani, you can play five-man stacks of all those raw points teams. And in a 15-game slate, if one of those goes off, I mean, you're going to be, you know, I think the idea is that in the 15-game slates, or however big the slate is, somebody is going to get there, you know, and if so, you want to be on it. The last team I would like to mention as far as a raw point stack is the Dodgers. They've actually disappointed a little bit in the last couple of days, but it doesn't change the fact that they're a good play here. So let me identify those. That would be both Turners. They sat some guys yesterday, so whoever they roll out today should be rested, right? Muncy sat, I think Turner sat. And then let's pull these other guys up here. You're going to get, you can't get Bellinger anymore. Seager, and then Bellinger over here. So this becomes difficult. It definitely becomes difficult to stack the Dodgers. So maybe you can't get away with that. Maybe you do like a 4-man or 3-man or stuff like that. Or if you want to get different at pitching, you could play one of those cheapos I mentioned. Those being, who's the 6,100? Luzardo, guys like that. You could save money there, then maybe get to some of these Phillies. Who's the other pitcher I mentioned? Let's say you wanted to play Morton, but you wanted to play somebody else. Let's say you want to play, you could play Skubal, for example. You played even Luzardo. I mean, it still doesn't make it that easy for you, you know. So I just assume probably stay away from the Dodgers as far as a 5-man goes. I mean, you can certainly play a couple of them, but yeah. Let me go and identify some one-offs which can help make some of those lineups work. I'm just going to read those off to you. One would be Justin Upton. He's 2,900. He rates to be very strong. Cheap play. Gardner, who I mentioned, 2,900, but he doesn't have a lot of power. Kelnick, 2,600. Yanni Hernandez from Texas, 2,400. Chas McCormick, 2,500 for Houston. Jake Myers. Then there's Christian Walker. Aside from that, the most of the cheapos are just coming from the same stacks that I mentioned before. Did I mention DJ Peters? Sorry about that if I didn't. Kiermaier I did mention before, but I'll highlight that again. Michael Taylor, I always like playing. Adolis Garcia. These are all kind of good one-offs. And yeah, that's pretty much where I am at with respect to DraftKings. I don't think I'm going to be playing FanDuel tonight, but just to let you know what I like over there. I think Morton is a standout over there. He's my favorite pitcher. As a matter of fact, I don't really like Ohtani that much over there. He's 10-5. I would prefer, actually, if I didn't play Morton, to pay down for guys like Heaney or Luzardo or Peralta. Peralta is a very strong player over there at 9,800, I think. But I think Morton is the clear play. And with respect to stacks over at FanDuel, it's very similar, I think. Let me just take a look real quick. Tampa still remains a standout. And then same guys I mentioned, Yankees, Philly, Boston, Dodgers, and Houston. So if you wanted to learn how to make a huge slate small, hopefully I did a decent enough job with that. That's pretty much all I had for you guys. If I can post an update, great. If not, this is what you're going to have to live with for today. And if Bobby can get on live, great. If Rody can get on live, great. I'm just not going to be around. And good luck, everybody.